Welcome back to Son of Chelsea. Daniel Childs here. As we know, Chelsea, the final two games of the Premier League season are upon us. They are absolutely huge in terms of whether Chelsea are going to be in the Champions League next season or not, which is, in my opinion, the defining line between success and failure for this season. And the first one at Stamford Bridge on Friday night, the final home game of this season, is against Man United. Now, although I'm sure many outsiders believe that Chelsea are going to win this game given the form of both teams, I know many of you are cautious about this game because of our history against Man United. So I thought it appropriate and just a great opportunity to bring on a Man United perspective for this game. Hopefully we'll do more of this, especially heading into next season, of getting opposing views, because I do think it is interesting to talk about things outside the Chelsea bubble on the show. And great to say that Scott Saunders, who I'm sure many of you know, I was on the 90 Min panel before discussing football with him. He's been a great Man United content creator and voice for a long period of time, and his podcast, The Promised Land, link in the description box below if you want to go and check it out. So Scott, thank you so much for joining me. How you doing, mate?
Very kind of you. Thanks for having me. Good to catch up. It's been a little while in person or online or whatever it is. But I'd say looking forward to this game, but I don't know if I am really. I find it difficult to do with United nowadays. But lots on the line for Chelsea.
Yeah, of course. It's weird with United because I don't know how, as a United fan, you'd feel about this season, because obviously from a Premier League perspective, it's been atrocious, but you're now in this situation. You're kind of in the same situation as Spurs, where there's this shootout for salvation, I guess. I mean, if you're not, I mean, my prediction is I think United will win, because I kind of want United to win over Spurs, but also I think that United just have kind of that ability to get over the line. How will you view this season? Because it must be one of the strangest ones you've ever seen, if it goes from like complete failure in the league to this unexpected high. It's bizarre.
I think years of mismanagement of Manchester United is. Look, I spoke last season. I thought it all came to a head last season when United finished eighth or whatever. They won the FA Cup, put Chelsea in the Conference League, and it's. I thought that was as bad as it could get, but no. And now I'm thinking, how much worse can it get than this? Because the 16th could finish 17th in the league, which is just. I've never seen anything like this in my life. And for me, I know a lot of people are putting stock in the Europa League, and there's the end of season debates about who's had a better season out of, Arsenal haven't won anything again, and it's funny to do that and everything. But really, I think what United fans want is to know that the club are on a safe footing and are trending in the right direction. And they're a good cup team, to be honest, at the moment. Could be, if they win this Europa League, 3 trophies in 3 seasons in an era which is terrible. Which is like as success. Some clubs could only dream of that success, even in great eras. So you have to take that on board. I don't think winning the Europa League will mask over anything, and I think I do like what Ruben Amorim says. I know he's getting a bit of a hard time at the moment, but I do think his intentions are the right ones, because I felt for a long time that United need a deep cleanse. I think there's something culturally wrong at the club, and something needs to change. And I think every time they've gone and done it before, it's been half-hearted in a sense. And I feel like Ruben Amorim's got the vim to pull it through. But we'll see. United are in a difficult financial position as well, so we'll see.
I saw a story today that not only have the end of season awards been cancelled, but it will just be a barbecue celebration at Carrington. And I assume the players are going to have to bring their own food to the barbecue, maybe, because things are pretty tight at the moment.
Yeah, not even getting tickets. Ruben Amorim's paying for tickets for coaches, family members and that to go out to the game. And you see a new report of them cost cutting every week, or sometimes it's 2, and then everyone goes, "Oh my God, it's the most awful thing I've ever seen." And yeah, it is, and it makes for horrible reading. But I think what they're doing is, the club has spent money so erroneously for so long that they're not in the Champions League, and they're overspending their means. So I think what they're doing now is it looks horrible and it feels horrible, but I think it's for the health of the club long term, because the way that it's trending is down. So something needs to change.
In terms of Amorim, because this time, probably a little bit less, but this time last year, kind of when Pochettino was sacked. Amorim or Pochettino left, when Amorim was kind of linked to Chelsea, and I actually, out of the options that were cited, he was like the one I would have wanted to join Chelsea. But obviously, it's hard to kind of say, although I think he's been given a lot of grace because of, as you said, I think they're completely understandable, the structural, systemic problems that have been United for a long time. As a coach, though, like he's walked into this mess and he has been there for an extended period of, well, obviously not a full season, but, enough where you can make some form of a judgment. I mean, how much do you put down to him as a coach? Because I think then there still needs to be some coach responsibility for the failings, right? Or is it just such a uniquely bad situation that you could put anyone in there and you'd have kind of a similar problem?
Do you know, it's funny because there was a time when Ten Hag was in charge, or it might have been a coach before him, actually. No, it was probably when Ten Hag was in charge, where people were looking at Ruben Amorim and what he was doing with Sporting and going, I want that guy, I want that guy. And I said, I remember saying it, I said it publicly as well. He'll come in and he'll have this, United will fall further down. Like, you won't be able to see the Ruben Amorim you're seeing at Sporting with this version of United. It's just that's the way that it is. And I don't think anybody could really have imagined it would be this bad. But I think what I'm doing, and I've had to do this for a long time, is look with a long-term lens. And it seems like every year that goes by, I need to push that lens out by another year. I think what he's doing is he didn't want to join in the middle of the season. United gave him a now or never, essentially, and said, if you don't come in now, then you'll miss the job. And he wanted the job. So the way that he's had 490 interviews so far. It must be so draining for him. And in terms of the coaching, I think he knows here that what I know about Ruben Amorim teams is that they're high energy, high intensity. They have this desire to win. They are not things I can say about any Man United team I've seen over the past decade. So it's chalk and cheese in a sense. So I think he's in there and he's tried his best to. He can either go a different way and change his tactics, like what everyone wants for United to get up to 7th in the league or something like that. Or he said early on, I'm going to take the pain now for the good of the long-term health of the club. And I think that's the time that we're in. So I give him a bit of leeway. I'm not the only one, though. I think after losing to West Ham at the weekend, a lot of people have started looking at him and going, I don't think this guy is up to it. But I think change is needed. You just need players who work hard, players who are physically fit and capable of running, technically able players, two-footed players. United need to recruit more of them, and that'll make a difference, I hope, to the team. I just don't think that the squad is his squad at the moment.
No, I accept that. I think, especially the mess that has happened, over a number of years, and especially because he didn't have a pre-season, there are many players there that you kind of still look at, and I'm surprised they're still kind of at the club, and you kind of think, well, why haven't they moved on from that player yet, and why is
Are you thinking of
there?
Victor Lindelof by any chance?
Well, yeah, there's loads. Like even some players who I know on their day can still have good performances. I kind of even look. I know he's kind of rekindled a bit of respect from people, but Harry Maguire. I sort of look at him and go, yeah, sure, in a back three system, I could see it still working, but I'm a bit shocked he's still there. And even McTominay managed to get himself out of the United vortex and is doing well in Napoli. So it's like there clearly needs to be a cleanse. I think that's the right word for it. I wanted to mention Liam Delap. He's a player that on my show we've talked about a lot. Like, he's been linked to Chelsea for an extended period of time, but he's also been linked to Man United. And as of recording this show, it seems like United may have a bit of a lead on Chelsea. It's not guaranteed, but I wonder what your thoughts are on Delap. I mean, because you've bought a lot of strikers recently, like Joshua Zirkzee last summer, Rasmus Højlund, who really hasn't worked out. I mean, when you look at Delap, and I think of the pressure that we placed on a Chelsea striker, but the pressure probably placed on a Man United striker is severe as well. So, are you intrigued by Delap? Do you think that's a good move to buy the sort of profile of player that Amorim needs?
I'm slightly on the fence about it, but I've been trying to get into the clubs. I think they're going to change the way that they recruit. And look, they can't go. I think I've been outspoken about Chelsea in the past in terms of how many young players that they've signed, because there will come a point where you don't really have enough experience. And I think United signing another 22-year-old forward to go alongside a 22-year-old forward or to replace a 22-year-old forward is probably not fixing the problem. But you look at, I wanted to give Højlund time. I thought he would work or maybe look a bit better under Amorim, but I think you could see his shortcomings. The way that he goes 1v1 with defenders is he ends up losing the ball invariably. There's only a few occasions where he's able to get the better of them and bring other players into play. His goal record is obviously not good enough either. And I think what you get in Liam Delap is hard work, channels running, 12 goals, I think, in the Premier League this season for Ipswich, which isn't bad at all. But like going to a United or to a Chelsea is a different level of pressure. I think what United need to do, from my perspective anyway, is try and eliminate that, strip it back as much as possible, and just focus on players who will run and players who will work hard and players who will carry out the tactical instructions that the coach wants. Because I don't think everybody does that. And look, we'll see. I think Delap's in a good position, a decent release clause. You've got Newcastle, who could potentially be in the Champions League, Chelsea, who could potentially be in the Champions League, United, who could potentially be in the Champions League as well. He's got a lot of choices, and I think he'll make good fits for everyone. He doesn't strike me, though, yet as like a bona fide number 9 first choice for either Chelsea or United. He's got a lot of proving to do for me.
No, I think that's the reason why I think some Chelsea fans either think he'd be a good move because it's kind of a low risk signing. I don't think anyone would look at Liam Delap and think, especially in this market, for 30 million and expect him to set the world alight. Like, they would not. How can you, in the current market, when you're signing someone for 30 million, you sort of think, well, he's young. I think Chelsea fans who are more cynical will say, well, it's another young guy. It's another guy who we have to wait several years to blossom and become better. But then maybe that low risk, kind of low pressure actually makes him a better player because he isn't expected to be this superstar from the off. But, I do agree with you about, that it's the problem. I think I just came off a show and it's something that Chelsea fans are discussing about the striker situation and the squad recruitment of, like, you buy all these young players, and if you keep on buying these young players, where are they going to learn off experience? Where are there going to be those more experienced heads to kind of lean off and mature from? It is a dynamic, and a problem with going for such a young group of players is that there maybe is a lack of appreciation for the balance of your Cesar Azpilicueta, in the Chelsea dressing room, that type of figure who isn't glamorous, but it's probably very valuable. You were before we started recording, your facial expression when I told you that Chelsea fans were cautious about this game, and I understand why you have that face based on where Man United are on the Premier League table. But from a Chelsea perspective, the history of this fixture in recent years has been very, very disappointing from a Chelsea point of view, and it always seems, especially earlier in the season, the reverse fixture of this. Where again United had just sacked Erik ten Hag, not looking like any form of a serious football team, when we rock up at Old Trafford in quite a good moment, and we seem to drop several levels and still can't win the game. So I think that's why. I mean, I'm sure from a Man United perspective, maybe there's no ambition or kind of no hope that Chelsea won't, be able to do something. But can you understand why Chelsea fans are maybe a little bit cautious, but? Or maybe you reject that entirely based on how bad United have been.
I think I would strongly reject that, to be honest. But I do see where you're coming from, because, like, historically, this has been one of United's best away grounds in the league, down the years. It's been I'm not sure what the record's like over the past few years, but I was there, for example, for the last game at Stamford Bridge between these two teams. And I was there in the press box watching Cole Palmer bang in, the goal for 4-3, and I was thinking to myself, United had this game won and they lost. It was like the latest comeback in Premier League history, I think it was, wasn't it?
I've never had a turnaround in feeling like I did between like the 89th minute and the 100th something minute. It was insane.
It was crazy, and I think that really, I just look at this game, and I think the context around it. Ruben Amorim's already said in the last few days, like, the players don't seem, I'm paraphrasing him, but he says they don't really seem to care about, like, finishing 13th, or if they're Like, they can't finish any higher than 16th, so it doesn't really matter. There's other priorities elsewhere, and I'm not going to stand for that. But at the same time, this is 5 days before the game in the season that could completely change the perception of United's season, earn them an extra 100 million quid. And I know the players aren't really thinking about that, but maybe they are, because they get wage increases if they get in the Champions League. So, I think this is, I don't know what team he's going to go with, because United are in this difficult situation, really, where you are 5 days away from that big final, which both United and Spurs really, really have to win. But United need to keep their players fresh, but also not get them injured. And Lenny Yoro's obviously fallen foul to like a problem in the last game as well, so there's a bit of concern over him. But I think this is not, I don't want to say this is not the priority or not a priority for United at the moment, but the way that they're playing, I don't think they've won since before the last international break at Leicester. And with Chelsea going for like having something to play for, especially after dropping points last week, and there was maybe a bit of a reprieve because Forest didn't win themselves. Yeah. But I think with what's at stake for both teams, I know Chelsea have a final coming up in a couple of weeks as well, but that's an extra week away. So I think Chelsea have all the focus. They have everything to play for, and United, their focus is elsewhere, and it's just an obligation that they have to kind of fill out this game. So, and they're not defending very well, really, either. They don't really have much attacking threat going forward. And it just seems like if Chelsea put the pressure on a bit, I think they'll force the issue and score a goal. And if they score first, I think this is going to be a Chelsea win.
Do you think that, because that's kind of my hope in a sense that, someone like Bruno Fernandes, who kind of, I mean, maybe you can reject this, but to me, I think is basically Man United's hope, and that's about it. Like it's basically him or no one else is going to kind of take you to a more. I know obviously Maguire with his heroics in the Europa League, but I mean Fernandes does kind of seem like the last vestige of kind of any sort of elite talent or mentality within the group. I mean, I can't. But if I was in your shoes as a fan, given all the context of this season, I would not want him playing on Friday. Like I would not, and I know obviously I'm saying that from a Chelsea perspective, but like you would not, if you've got a dead rubber game, if Chelsea had a dead rubber game before the Conference League final, for instance, I'd probably want to rest some of my bigger players. Unfortunately, we're not going to be in that situation most likely. We're going to have to put our best team against Forest. But yeah, it's. Do you think that will come into the equation for Amorim, where it's like, I'm just going to put out quite a weak team? Like I expect Spurs will put out quite a weak team against Villa.
Yeah, I think so. I think he will go half strong, because there are some players in the team that need minutes. I think Ahmad is one of those, probably. Don't know if Garnacho will start the final, so I could potentially see him starting as well. Bruno's the one, though. He obviously is, and if I remember rightly, I don't think he got any minutes against West Ham. So am I remembering that right? Yeah, I think so. So he will need some minutes on the pitch probably to keep things ticking over. And I'm not sure where he will go with this, because obviously they have to toe that line of making sure that nobody picks up an injury. Touch wood, Bruno's record has been pretty good. So maybe he gets this game, he gets the 5 days rest, and then he can stay match sharp for the final, which is next Wednesday. But yeah, I think it'll be a mix. And Amorim talks about managing loads a lot. And I think this is probably one of those where it'll be a mix, and he'll be taking case by case on certain players and judging whether they need 60 minutes, 30 minutes, no minutes, or whatever. And I think it'll be one of those. It's hard to predict, to be honest.
No, absolutely. And I'm sure from a Chelsea point of view, it's hard to know, because, when you are facing a team like Man United with this kind of scenario, you are kind of sitting there going, well, it's that double-edged sword when you're playing a team with nothing to play for. It's a bit like when we face Liverpool, right? Like, are you going to get a great Liverpool who are relaxed because the strain and pressure of getting over the line in the title race means you play with a bit more freedom? Or are you going to get a team who are a little bit off the pace? And obviously with United, it feels like both United and Spurs have just given up playing Premier League football for quite a while now. So yeah, it's I don't know where if Chelsea like absolutely thumped United on Friday, like if it's a really rotated team and Chelsea just absolutely do the business, and they're really United look like they can't be arsed with the game from quite early on. Do you think that's damaging, or do you think most people will just kind of shrug their shoulders again and go, well, onto Bilbao? We've seen this all before.
I don't think it makes make much of a difference to the players, but I think fan sentiment is starting to turn a little bit because regardless, this is Manchester United. You know, that old line of they have standards that they have to meet, and they've not met them at all this year. So if you go in and getting thumped by a team that you should really be competing with, then regardless of the circumstances, is not a good look. And I think Amorim will try his best to shrug it off. But I think everybody knows that the season rests on next Wednesday. But I think fans are looking at the situation now and looking at the limpness of the defeats and are thinking that they're starting to lose faith with the coach a bit. And that is not good for his long-term, credentials. I think things will have to change in pre-season and in the summer in terms of personnel. And I think if he can he says he thinks he knows what's wrong and he knows how to fix it. So maybe we'll have to see that happen pretty quick though. Because if United start next season in the kind of form that they've been in for the last couple of months, he's on thin ice. And I can't go through that again. I just can't go through another manager cycle. I can't. It's annoying me.
Yeah. And I guess the weird thing with Amorim, it's not when the first year of this ownership, when Lampard had the interim and it was so clear that he wasn't going to be there beyond then. And we knew that a majority of, a lot of those players at Chelsea clearly had kind of run their race and would be moving on as well. United is kind of, especially with Amorim clearly going to be there beyond the season, and you've got some young players, as you mentioned, like Ahmad, who, you feel like you could still build around, and they're at least going to be here for the long term or a few more years. It's not that case where there's going to be a clean cut. There's going to be remnants of this season still there next year, and it's especially with the nature of football now. I know this is more of a concern for Chelsea with the Club World Cup, but the fact that it always feels like football never ends nowadays. We just keep going. The long gap is probably not going to be there for Amorim, so it absolutely is the case that you need to have fast starts, and with the top 6 turning into arguably a top 7, top 8 nowadays, it's not as simple as, well, we've only really got a battle against like 1 or 2 teams for Champions League qualification, because clearly like Newcastle this year, Aston Villa, the surprise of Nottingham Forest, like there is so much more competition out there. And
that can skew the judgment of your season as well, because that group is so I don't know where you sit on this in terms of weakness of the league or strength of the league. Like Liverpool are miles ahead of everyone.
Yeah.
But I think are Arsenal like 67 points or something along those lines?
Yeah.
That's very low. So it gives you the idea really that Liverpool are way above everybody else, and it looks like they're so much better than everybody else because they've got more consistent results. But the gaps between, like, look how well these clubs recruit. And look at like Callum Hudson-Odoi at Nottingham Forest, for example. I know you're pretty sore about that one because they picked him up for $3 million. That's the quality of players that certain clubs are discarding and other clubs are picking up and using in the Premier League. So it kind of brings that group together. You have to find a level of consistency well above everybody else in order to separate yourself from the pack. But I think, it's a tough one, and United are going to be back in that mire or in that battle, hopefully. Anyway, but if a couple of bad results and you fall to 7th place or 8th place, then it completely changes the context of what your expectations are and how you're meeting them. Because everybody's so used to top 4, top 5.
Yeah.
But if there's 8 teams going for those positions and you're 9th, it makes it look a hell of a lot worse than it is. So it's difficult.
The final thing I want to ask is, with obviously being on 90 Min, we've kind of been on panel shows for 90 Min and spoke about. I know you've got a lot of flack from Chelsea fans in the past about your opinions on sort of the recruitment strategy, and I guess it's weird because in a couple of weeks' time Chelsea could be in the Champions League again, and if Chelsea win the Conference League, I think majority, 99.9% of Chelsea fans, including myself, would say that's been a successful season based on the pre-season expectations of last year. But from the outside looking in, and I'm not just saying, obviously you have a Man United perspective, but I think you give pretty fair analysis of other teams, and you'll credit other teams when you feel like they're doing well. What's your sort of view on Chelsea now? Because obviously, I think the last time we were on a show together was last pre-season, I want to say, before Maresca had definitely arrived at that point.
We did some looks ahead, didn't we, to the new season? And I think we were talking about Pochettino at the time and the fallout of the sacking and that kind of thing. Look, I think with Chelsea, it's Maresca's been very, I suppose, defensive of himself, and like we've been in that mix for a long time now. And like if they fall at the final hurdle, it's not going to look good. But from what I see and think, he's going to keep his job regardless, right? Just give him 5 years. So it gives you the idea that they want to change.
Scott,
plus one,
of course. Don't forget the plus one.
I look at Chelsea and I think I was super critical at the time because, and I'll say I would like to see Man United do something similar to what Chelsea did in terms of not cutting sentiment completely and hanging players out to dry to the point where it's mean, but being quite cutthroat with cultural change. And I think that is necessary because United's culture is a failing one. Chelsea's was a winning one. And that came as that was my criticism at the time. What are the intentions here from the people who are running Chelsea? Is it to win titles or is it to flip players for profit? That was what I was saying. And I think Chelsea, I look at this Chelsea team at the moment and I think you look right through the spine of the team and you think, if you just get a striker, 26 years old, who can score you 20, a central defender or a midfielder or something like that, and a goalkeeper.
Yeah,
that's your spine of the team that just lifts the experience level. I think you can compete for the title. But do they want to do that? Or do they want to keep going with Liam Delap kind of signings? So, and that was always my question, is what's the end goal for the people who are running the club? Is it to win titles? Because that's what Chelsea are used to and what Chelsea should be doing. Because that was what the last 20 years were like. Or 15 years or whatever it was. Now it's, do we want to make more money? And is this being run as a business? And I don't know what the intention is just yet, but I've yet to see that real desire to push through and go and win. Because I think they're not far away, to be honest. But depends on the intentions. That was always my criticism, really.
No, I think that to be fair, I think, that is, I feel like, a fear of many Chelsea fans I speak to. Is it about objectively making the football team better and, moving out of transfer windows with a stronger squad than you walked in with? And I think like this summer is really, really defining, especially if Chelsea get Champions League football. I mean, it still is if we don't, because then obviously Chelsea have got to find a way next season to get into the Champions League. But it's one thing hearing about Chelsea apparently wanting to sign Virgil van Dijk and wanting to sign these older players. It's another thing actually going out and trying to make it happen. And I think that is that's where we're gonna kind of distinguish whether it's serious or not. I think that I made my mind up last summer. I think that last summer was enough evidence for me. That's not to say they can't prove me wrong, but I think this summer for a lot of people, it's going to kind of be quite defining whether, as you say, that there's that, Liverpool, for instance, went for a period where people were kind of questioning Klopp and, can this team ever seriously compete for a title? And then they went out and signed Alisson. They went out and signed Virgil van Dijk. They had done actually a lot of good business up to that point already, especially in attack. But really, those were the signings that took them to another level. I know people have a go at Arsenal and joke, and I find it funny as well that there's a likelihood and a chance for Chelsea to end yet another season with more European trophies than Arsenal. But it undeniably, where Arteta picked them up in 2019 to where they are now, and the sort of quality of player they have is a lot better than it was. That's undeniable. So it's really that, and I think for both Chelsea and Man United, it's about whether there is that desire to kind of really be humble enough to, because I think in some ways Chelsea and United have mirrored each other. Maybe not this year is kind of hard to argue because of the distance in position. Just quickly, very last thing, because I can't believe I've just completely missed him, but Jadon Sancho, just quickly, because Jadon Sancho is one that slightly divides opinion about from Chelsea fans. A few weeks back, when he wasn't playing that well, many people wanted to just send him back to United and let United deal with him. he's actually played a bit better since then. He's actually started to produce a bit more. And maybe there's a feeling like, for instance, my brother, for instance, who I sit with at the bridge on most weeks, kind of thinks, well, you might as well just keep him, and then you can make some profit on him, even if it doesn't work out. What's your position on Sancho? I find him, maybe my position is what United fans have experienced. I find him a consistently frustrating player. For someone who gets himself into the sort of positions he gets himself into and to not take shots, I just don't understand it.
Yeah, I don't know if the Premier League is the right one for him. I think he's done really well in the Bundesliga with Dortmund. I think his spell back at Dortmund was really, really overblown for what it was. But Chelsea to be honest, I was glad that Chelsea picked him up at the time, just because of the way that he acted. Like I felt like he sold United short a bit, given Ten Hag came out, and like that was like the thing that broke Ten Hag, ironically. Everything trended down from there, but I think the way that Ten Hag had protected Sancho up to that point, he was due a bit back in repayment and faith. It went the other way, obviously, and I think Sancho, and maybe you can look at the United, I talk about United culture a lot, and maybe he's completely right to want out, and that's a fair thing. To be honest, I look at Sancho now like I look at a lot of other players, and I think whatever happens, just if you could take the 25 million offer and we could do that transaction straight away, that would be the best thing for United, because I don't know where else United are getting that money from. I think, am I right in saying that Chelsea they would need to negotiate personal terms with him and a wage, etc., if they were to sign him?
I think probably. I mean, it was kind of cited that wouldn't be a problem when it was kind of cited when we got the loan done. That it sounded, there was no talk of this 5 million penalty fee back in the summer. It sounded like basically a done deal. It sounded like basically this is going to be a formality. Chelsea, it's quite funny where United are in the table, but I think the thing was, if Chelsea finished above 14th, and it was quite clear from very early on, Chelsea were not going to finish that low. So it was, for me, it was kind of like, well, yeah, it's a done deal. He's going to be in the squad. But then obviously during, I think, the March international break, it became evident that there was this break clause. And I'm more leaning towards the 5 million penalty fee, just simply because I don't know if Sancho can get significantly better. I agree with you. I think there probably is a better, more suitable home for his style of football. And I just can't, Noni Madueke has started to really impress at left wing. We've got Tyreek George coming through.
Estevao,
I mean, all the left-footed right wingers we have, some players might need to shift over to the other side to get some minutes. So for 5 million, I mean, I don't really see, for whatever you could, Sancho would need to be a really big success for me to justify keeping him. And I don't think I've seen enough this season. I mean, maybe he scores the winner against Man United. No, he can't, sorry, because he's on loan. Just realising that. But,
the winner at Forest to get you Champions League.
Forest, right. Yeah, get Champions League. And then, of course, everyone in the euphoria will think, yeah, let's keep him. But I'm more like looking in the long term. And I think for someone who's a bit older than some of our other players, has actually been around the block a bit, I understand why United fans sort of run out of patience with him based on what I've seen this season.
Yeah, I'm hoping that Chelsea don't take up that 5 million option, because I think it's just another problem that United have enough problems trying to shift players on massive wages as it is. And I think bringing a 5 million, fee back to take a player back is to just deal with the problem again. I worry for United's chances of offloading him. I don't know if they're going to get any better than 25 million. Even if it's to a direct rival in the Premier League. So I'm hoping Chelsea take up the full option. But if I was Chelsea, I would do what you're saying, personally.
We will see, as we will for the rest of this. I mean, whether both Chelsea and United are in the Champions League, there, of course, is the reality where Chelsea are not in the Champions League and Man United are next season, which is just wild. But that's the way the Europa League works. Can't really complain because Chelsea... I've been in the Europa League before. But thank you so much, Scott, for coming on the show. As I do with all my guests, just a chance for you to shout out where people can find your podcast and work online.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. It's been good to catch up. Yeah, the Promised Land podcast is where you can find me on Apple, Spotify, YouTube as well. And follow me on social media at @double_Scott Saunders on X, Instagram, TikTok. I don't really use Instagram all that much. I don't really use TikTok all that much. I probably should, but I don't. But just give me a follow on there if you like what you see. I think me and you, Dan, I do like this. We kind of come from the more. There's a lot of noise in the space, and I do try and cut through it as much as I can. Maybe some opinions are a little bit out there, but you don't go and shout and scream it from the rooftop. So that's the approach I try and bring. And I think we're similar with that.
No, I agree. I just quickly, I say to anyone listening to this who's a Chelsea fan, and I think that, we all like to live in kind of, we care obviously very deeply about our own clubs, but I do think there is value in listening to, funny enough, just today, someone we know personally as well, Harry Symeou. I like listening to his show about Arsenal. Like it's I think it's interesting to me to get out of the Chelsea bubble and actually listen to other perspectives, because I think you learn a lot. So definitely suggest people will check out your podcast, check out other podcasts as well. And it doesn't all have to be rants and kind of just having a go at everyone all the time. I completely agree. But thank you so much for watching, for listening. Links to Scott's work will be in the description box below. I'll be back again tomorrow to give you my team selector, thoughts, feelings, preview, all that good stuff for the United game on Friday. So thank you for watching. Follow me across the socials at SonOfChelsea, and I will see you again very soon. All the best.